Hey team, it's Jen. I'm coming to you here at the top of week 7, and I have two things on the agenda for this week that actually came up in my own classes, and I think that these 2 points will be pretty important for many of us as we move forward with week 7. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems that whenever I get to the week 7 point in my courses, students are really dragging ass. And I found that week 7 is an excellent time to reach out to those students who have fallen off the wagon in our course. Students who, for example, have stopped submitting deliverables or have been MIA in the forums or have been scoring really low on certain deliverables. I feel like week 7 is the last ditch effort to really reel these students back into our courses. After week 7, it gets to be a little bit too late, I have found, to really help students to complete coursework or to improve their grades, to find a place in the course. I feel like the 7 week mark is a good make or break point for a lot of students. They're either in or they're out. So here in week 7, it's a really great opportunity for us to take a couple minutes to go through our grade books, to see what students have the red flags, and to shoot them an email beseeching them to come to class, or at least making them aware that now is the last point, the last time that they'll really be able to catch up and to matriculate back into the course. And I would encourage them to do that. I would offer them, some positive encouragement, some positive reinforcement, and say, we can work something out, but anytime after week 7, it is very unlikely that you're going to be able to get back up to snuff without a whole lot of hard work and more hard work than you probably would want to invest. So at week 7, let's take some time to reel in the stray fish in our pond and see what we can make of it. It's a kind of last ditch effort to bring the course back together again. The second point that I wanted to mention here in week 7 is rubric inconsistencies. I'm sure that I'm not alone, and I know that I'm not because I've spoken to a couple of you recently about this too. In the fact that sometimes when we're grading deliverables, we might be looking for particular criteria that isn't really outlined in the rubric. And the question always arises, how do I show students that I value whatever aspect it is, this aspect of the annotated bibliography, for example, when it's not expressed clearly in the rubric? How do I score students or evaluate them or make them aware of their performance in an area that isn't outlined in the rubric? One of these areas is MLA format, and I wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about this particular aspect where there might be some inconsistencies. Recently, I have been peeking into a couple of your courses, and I've noticed that some student essays submitted in Turnitin are outrageously not formatted according to MLA. I'm talking, I have glimpsed some student essays in which they have all cap titles in bold and underlined. They have extra space between paragraphs. They have totally, I don't know where they get it from, inconsistent block formatting. I've even seen some essays that have a running head according to APA style. And I was surprised to see these things that many instructors are not noting directly on the manuscript, bringing awareness to the student that she's actually not using MLA format. In my own courses, I'm very, very rigorous about MLA format because I feel that it's extremely important for graduate students to grasp the essentials of writing in a discipline like MLA, APA, Chicago, because when they do go on to get published, Not every publisher employs MLA. Some employ Chicago, Harvard, APA, and you have to be able to be extremely detail oriented if they're even going to look at your manuscript. And you're going to have to make those changes, and they're going to be really, really hard on you when you submit that. If you can't conform to MLA, a style that you've been learning since you were in grade school, that's a big, big problem. I have students who say to me, well, my instructor said that I should do it this way. And then another instructor said I should do it that way. And I say, there's only one way to do MLA. And MLA style changes about every 3 to 4 years. There are little changes that are made to it. You must have the current MLA handbook, and you must adhere strictly to exactly what is in that book. Because if you don't, and you want to submit your essay for publication, they're going to be like, what the hell is this shit? That's not MLA. You have a running head on your MLA that you're submitting to a publisher. They're going to be like, wow, how am I supposed to take them seriously? It's sad in some ways, but it's true. Writing in a particular school of citation also gives consistency across nations, global consistency for how we appropriate texts, for how we cite them. So make this very clear to your students that even if MLA format is not necessarily something that you're grading for in the rubric, it is something that ought to be at the forefront for them for their professional development. That's the approach that I take with pretty much everything that I value that isn't explicit in the rubric. For example, I really, really value argumentation, and unfortunately, in the 652 rubric, summary is prized as the most important thing. Now, I really hate for graduate students to summarize at length. Summary should always have a purpose, and it should be extremely minimal in an academic essay. But it's the area that garners the most points in the rubric. It's totally adverse to my own pedagogy and my own approach to writing and getting published. So how do I deal with that? Well, first of all, I just address the elephant in the room. I tell students straight up, guys, these are the 3 things that I prize the most in academic writing, and this is why. Summary is prized in the rubric. Let's talk about that. Why? What is the function of summary? Why is it important? How should you summarize? I want to make sure that you're summarizing very well. If you're summarizing in more than 2 sentences, it better be frigging necessary, and it better be applied really well. And so when I score on summarizing, I'm very explicit about exactly what I need. It needs to be highly functional to get a good score. So there are ways that you can emphasize what you value about academic writing, even though the rubric might have different values. Now, what you can't do is you cannot, not use the rubric. You cannot give a student a grade that isn't conforming to the rubric, which is why it's so important for you to make sure that you're engaging the language of the rubric and even the numerical values of the rubric, so that students can see that even though you prize MLA and you prize argumentation, you're not getting docked off points because it's not in the rubric. And if you think the rubric should be changed, fill out a design ticket, and we'll try to get to that as soon as we can. So in the meantime, make sure that you're being very clear. Be very transparent with students about what your expectations are and how that fits into the rubric. That way students always have faith that they are being scored according to what they understand. Because when you get into that kettle in which students feel as if they're being scored on something that isn't clearly outlined for them, they're going to be pissed off. They're going to be irate, and they should be. And it really is our job to make sure that we understand the rubric and that we understand how our values line up and do not line up with that rubric, and that we're able to express that to students. I found that makes a lot of difference. I hope that helps. So topic number 1, reel in your wayward students this week. And topic number 2, give some serious thought to how you handle rubrics in your course. I hope to see you, I will see you next week, and I hope to see you in the forums. Have a great week, guys. Bye.